this video, I'll tell you how to graph verticals, specifically how to know if there are asymptotes. This is just an introductory level video, so you will learn a little bit of more tricks and details in other videos. But right now, let's understand what is an asymptote. So an asymptote is a line that is approached as x or y go to infinity. So an example is the following graph right here. So I would like you to look at this graph, and so right here you see that there is kind of an invisible line. Let me make it bigger. So there is an invisible line that the function doesn't seem to be able to cross. Right here at 0.5 and right here also around 0.5. And so those are asymptotes. There are lines that the graph approaches but as it goes to infinity but never quite touches. So right here you can imagine that if you were to continue the line, it would approach this line, and here would approach the line as well. Same for the x's. And so these are two asymptotes. There are not four, there are only two, which are the number of lines that we drew. So let's draw them in different colors. So this is the vertical asymptote. So this is a vertical asymptote. And this right here is a horizontal asymptote. But now, how to find a vertical or a horizontal asymptote? So a vertical asymptote is found by first finding the zero of the denominator. And then plug in values close to it, to the x, plot or evaluate values close to that x and find the behavior. So in the graph I showed you before, right here, if you were to plug in a value very close to 0.5 right here, maybe this value, you would get a pretty high value, in the thousands probably, if it's close enough. And same thing for this one, but here you would get a very negative value because it goes to negative infinity. So by evaluating those two x values, by plugging in those two values, you are able to find if it approaches positive infinity and goes that way, or if it approaches negative infinity and goes this way. Because as you might think, this is not the only way you can have a graph. So if, let's say that this is our vertical asymptote and this is our horizontal asymptote, and you can have more of them, and you can actually have an asymptote that goes like this, but we will not learn about that until later on. But so if you were to have these two as your vertical and horizontal asymptote, you could possibly have something like this and something like this, or maybe something like this and something like this, or in many different ways. There is no one specific. As you can see here, we have this one right here and this one right here, but you could have almost like in any quadrant if you want to think of this as a quadrant. So That is our rule for finding a vertical asymptote. For finding a horizontal asymptote, you just evaluate the function as x approaches infinity. So how to do this? How to know what f of x is as x gets bigger and bigger and bigger? Well, actually, to do that, let's say that you were to have something x, like ax plus b, over cx plus d. In this case, when you have something of degree 1, so here is a 1 and here is a 1, something of degree 1 over something of the same degree, and you have constant terms, you could actually get rid of these constant terms, because as x gets bigger and bigger and bigger, regardless of the value of b and d, x will overwhelm the result, and you would actually not care about the contribution of the constant terms, and you will be left with ax over cx. And this is our result when x approaches infinity, and that is how you will evaluate the function as x approaches infinity. In the next video, you will see a couple of examples, and most importantly, you will actually be able to graph this graph yourself by using the vertical asymptote and the horizontal asymptote techniques I mentioned in this video.